Well, this hotel is extremely popular with Chinese students and tourists. It's close to the city centre, next to all of the attractions, and it's understood that the family who arrived here on Wednesday had come from China to enjoy this city. But later on that day, they started to feel ill. They themselves called a doctor, and it's been reported that paramedics arrived here in hazmat suits and took them away to a hospital, initially in Hull. 2 of the family members tested positive for the virus, becoming the first confirmed cases in this country. They've since been transferred to Newcastle, where there's a specialist unit for dealing with infectious diseases. And we're told that because of their expertise there, anyone being treated there, as this family still are, is highly likely to get better.
What has the hotel said?
Well, looking at the hotel today, you wouldn't have known that this incident had even happened. Indeed, when we initially arrived here, we were told by the receptionist that the story simply wasn't true. Confirmation came later in the form of a statement from head office. They told us that Public Health England had advised the hotel that there was minimal risk of ongoing infection to the guests and staff here, and that they had sealed off the room where the family had been staying, and that in due course this apartment will have a deep environmental clean. But for now, the rest of the 136 apartments are still available to rent. And in fact, when we came here, there were people checking in who weren't being told what had happened. It was only as the story developed and people started reading about what was being reported that we then saw people going to reception and asking for a refund. And a number of those guests said to us that they were surprised and angry that they hadn't been told about what had happened here.
After we arrived here, then my mom saw on the news like someone sick here. So I think we're just changing another hotel.
Did they tell you that 2 people had been taken ill?
No, not at all.
Are you shocked?
By hearing from you, yes.
We've just arrived, so...
Did they mention anything to you?
No, they didn't, no.
Is that worrying?
A little bit, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, we literally arrived about an hour ago, so... But yeah, nobody said anything on check-in.
Well, Public Health England say they're urgently trying to contact anyone who came into close contact with the family, although they admit they don't know how many this might be. The advice for anyone who is worried, as with any cold or flu, is to regularly and thoroughly wash your hands, and if you sneeze, cover your mouth and nose.
Darshna, thanks very much for that. Well, the 83 Britons at Arrow Park Hospital in the Wirral will be kept in quarantine for 2 weeks in a separate accommodation block. The hospital has insisted it's perfectly safe for people to carry on turning up to appointments as normal. Let's go live now to our North of England correspondent Claire Fallon, who's there. Claire.
Well, only about 2 minutes ago, Kathy, there was a flurry of blue lights on the main road that's just at the front of this hospital, followed by the coaches, bringing 100 or so people who managed to leave Wuhan during the early hours of this morning to this site. This place has been chosen because it's very near to specialist centres where they have expertise in dealing with this kind of virus. I'd imagine the coaches are probably arriving at the back of this site at the moment. The people won't be staying in the hospital itself. It's the buildings just behind me, which are usually used as staff accommodation, which will essentially become an isolation unit for the next 2 weeks. Once the people arrive, they'll go inside. They will stay there for 2 weeks. They won't be allowed to leave. The hope is then they'll be able to go home. But we've been following their journey here over the last 24 hours.
So this is the ticket we got. And obviously that's the blankest ticket you'll ever see. I know it's a bit blurry.
Flying back into the UK, but not yet going home. First, there'll be 2 weeks of lockdown for fear those on board might be carrying the deadly coronavirus.
This is it, almost through the looking glass now. Fly into England and then quarantine for 2 weeks, and hopefully all will be well after that.
Along with Ben, a teacher who's been working in Wuhan, there are families, some with young children. Waiting for them at Brize Norton were medics and police, more health checks, and a fleet of Horseman-branded coaches, as if the scene wasn't already apocalyptic enough. In little over a month, The virus has spread from Wuhan to every province in China. At least 200 people are known to have died. There have been around 10,000 confirmed cases, and now the list of countries affected is growing, and as of today, includes the UK. But still, Wuhan is the place worst affected. Described by some as panic building, whatever you call it, it's impressive. A second hospital is going up at speed in the suburbs. Within days, they'll be treating patients here. In the UK, less spectacular, but still crucial in the battle to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Those who've returned from Wuhan will spend their next 2 weeks in quarantine on the Wirral. Not, as was first suggested, at a disused NHS facility, but at accommodation, where NHS workers were living until yesterday on the site of Arrow Park Hospital, which is still very much in use.
There's very fragile people here, and why are they bringing people who have a possible deadly virus? Are they going to bring them up here? Are we a dumping ground? These are questions that we as local residents really want to know.
What we hope is that all these people will have 14 days isolated from the general public, but with, not in the sense of solitary confinement, and then they will be able to be released without any symptoms at all.
As supplies arrived, we're told not just milk and juice, but games consoles and toys for the children. Hospital bosses said patients and people living nearby should not worry. But this is now officially a global public health emergency.